this CNN host wasn't prepared for what was coming her way, Byron Donalds has been known for being a talented and confident speaker, especially during tough interviews. It's like he has a knack for steering the conversation back to the core issues, refusing to let interviewers twist the narrative or lead him off track. In a recent interview with CNN, the host was celebrating the inflation rate fall below 3% for the first time since 2021. Asking Byron about his reaction to it, needless to say, he didn't hold back and outline the reason why we're here in the first place. Before I delve deeper into it, make sure to subscribe for more discussions like this.
This is the first time that overall inflation measured on year-over-year basis has come in below 3% since March of 2021, a trend that you could say could be good for the Harris campaign, maybe fueling the Fed to begin to cut interest rates in the fall. What's your reaction to it?
My reaction to it is that Kamala Harris's administration with Joe Biden crippled families across our entire country. There was a video of a black woman being interviewed, I think by MSNBC, talking about how prices have gone up massively. A bell pepper that was $2 is now $5, and she was able to get through it. But what about a single mom with 2 kids, 3 kids doing everything to make ends meet? Well, the reason why those prices have been massively expensive is because Kamala Harris was the tie-breaking vote on Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan in 2021. She was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act. All that did was create massive government spending, which created massive inflation on the backs of the American people. Overall, prices are up well over 20%, especially when you start getting into food and other areas like that. So Kamala Harris's record has been one of leaving working families behind. When Donald Trump was president, we didn't have a massive inflation. Our economy was growing massively at the same time. Working families were getting ahead. Middle-income families getting ahead. Everybody was thriving. I think so. The key issue is what was just brought up about which candidate is the candidate of political and economic change. It's without question that candidate's Donald J. Trump, because Kamala Harris was sitting there shotgun with Joe Biden, creating one of the worst economic situations for working families in the last 40 years in the United States of America.
That's right. CNN and the left are celebrating inflation dipping below 3% for the first time since 2021. And if you feel like this is misplaced, you're completely right. Considering the broader state of the economy, these people are failing to understand that in reality, the damage from years of high inflation has already been done, and the current economic situation remains dire. You see, inflation is not just a temporary inconvenience, it's a silent tax that erases the purchasing power of everyday Americans. When prices rise faster than wages, it creates a squeeze on household budgets that doesn't simply disappear where inflation rates drop. Over the past few years, the cost of essentials like groceries, housing, and utilities has skyrocketed, leaving many struggling to make ends meet. So even with the inflation below 3%, these high costs will continue to persist and families will continue feeling the pressure. Living paycheck to paycheck has become the norm for a massive portion of the population. The cumulative effect of prolonged inflation means that even those with steady incomes find themselves unable to cover basic expenses. A recent survey by the banking firm Lending Club found that in 2022, quote, 9.3 million more consumers are now living paycheck to paycheck, and 8 million, or 86% of those consumers, earn more than $100,000 annually. Considering that the median household income was around $74,500, that's a worrying figure if you ask me.
The idea of change, though, is all about perception, right? I mean, it could be change from now or change from Trump or change from, left to right and where I was just yesterday. So change is a perception that is that is in the eye of the voter. And what Harry Enton was getting at on the issue of age is that in the analysis you can see that it's flipped for Donald Trump, that now more voters are seeing him as too old to be president compared to what voters thought back in May. This was a Democratic problem. Is this now a Republican problem?
Well, first of all, with the polling that you're talking about, I'm not totally surprised, because if you look at Kamala Harris over the last 24 days, what have we seen? She won't answer questions. She won't talk to your network or any other network. She has no specific policy. No, but this does matter. It does matter, and let me explain. If she won't answer questions, hard-hitting questions about her record and what she's going to do, not the fluff about joy and moving forward and freedom. We're talking about the real political and policy issues that are going to affect the American people. She's nowhere to be seen. She will not answer questions. She has not talked to the American people. On her own website, there are no policies.
But when you think,
so it's
when
easy
she
to run
answers
as if you're a
questions,
Hollywood starlet, but we're running for president.
I really don't know what she was on about, because the economic change to the worse is not just something people are imagining. It's a daily struggle for many people to make ends meet. However, that's the way the MSM operates, as they try to downplay or outright ignore these real concerns, especially when the facts don't align with their narrative. In this case, when confronted with information that didn't fit CNN's agenda, the tactic was to twist words and quickly shift the conversation to a different topic, which doesn't correlate whatsoever with her initial question or Byron's answer to it. This is a well-worn strategy used by the MSM to divert attention from issues that could harm the political figures or causes they support. Instead of addressing the economic hardships that Americans are facing head-on, the conversation was derailed, leaving the real issues unaddressed. This is a classic example of how the media can manipulate discussions to avoid uncomfortable truths, ultimately leaving viewers with a distorted understanding of the situation. By shifting the focus, the real struggles of everyday Americans get sidelined and the broader public remains misinformed about the true state of the economy.
But you think when she sits for interviews, lays out policy, you think that's going to lead with more people thinking she is too old to be president? I'm trying to follow the line here.
No, it's not about her age. It's about her ability and her competency to lead our country going forward. What's going to be her economic agenda? Is that going to be different from Joe Biden? I don't think so, because Susan Rice is on the record now saying that Kamala Harris was integral in the Joe Biden-Kamala Harris agenda. I just laid out for you that she voted and she broke the ties in the Senate to push Joe Biden's economic agenda. So she has to answer for that. What is she going to say? Oh, I just want to move forward. And let's go back to another one. When she ran for president in 2020, when she was in the United States Senate, she supported the massive Green New Deal. She supported Medicare for All, a co-sponsor. She ran on that in 2020. Now she's trying to throw out staffers to run away from that. So what I am saying is not about age, about being a candidate for political and economic change to help our country thrive. Whether you're black or white, rich or poor, middle income, it doesn't matter. That person's Donald J. Trump. It is not Kamala Harris. And that is
my point was,
I
was asking about age, which is why I was, and you've brought.
Yep, and she kept mumbling and shifting the topic again, so that's why I had to cut the clip there. But Byron is right. People should take Kamala Harris's suitability for leading the country into consideration, especially taking into account her inconsistent track record. Back when she was California's Attorney General, her office was involved in several questionable actions. For instance, she opposed DNA testing that could have exonerated a man on death row, a move that critics argue reflects a troubling disregard for justice, and I agree. Additionally, she resisted calls for statewide standards on police body cameras and defended the state's use of solitary confinement, both positions that run counter to the progressive values that she now champions. As vice president, she was tasked with addressing the root causes of the massive influx of immigrants the U.S. was experiencing, and saying her efforts were ineffective is an understatement. Despite her visits to Central America and meetings with leaders, the crisis at the southern border was only worsened, with record numbers of illegal crossings and a humanitarian situation that remains dire. That's why Kamala Harris's track record raises serious concerns about her capacity to lead the country. From her controversial legal decisions to her inconsistent policy positions and inability to effectively address key issues, Harris has not demonstrated the leadership qualities necessary to be an effective president, and we haven't even started talking about foreign policy here and what a mess that could look like under her leadership. But apart from that, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think Byron was right in this remark? Let's get the conversation rolling in the comments down below.